everybody. Welcome to another episode 107 of Total Male Introspective, the TMi podcast. I'm Joe.
I'm JC.
What's up? Jonesy here.
And every week we bring you guys a hot topic, a little other fun discussion pieces for you. And before we get started, I always want to give you guys the heads up on what we've got going on that you can connect with us on. So check us out, Linktree. linktr.ee/the TMI podcast. Go over there. It's got a link to our Facebook, our Twitter, everything, Instagram, Patreon. Patreon is where you guys can donate to the show if you feel the need to help support us so we can buy some fancy new gear, pay for the software that gets us broadcast out to you on all the social media platforms at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time every Tuesday night. Help us go places, do things when we can, when COVID is over. We wanted to go to the podcast movement, but they canceled that, of course. And now we don't get to do our Dallas trip, so that's disappointing. But you with us? Boo, right, JC?
I know, but you know what? We'll get there eventually. Yo, I am so hyped after listening to the intro. I was having like a Tomorrowland moment right now.
Yeah.
Holy I miss you guys. It's been, what, 2 weeks since we last saw each other?
Yep, 2 weeks. For those of you that don't realize or weren't paying attention, we ended up having to cancel last week's show because the area that Jonesy and I live in had a massive power outage due to the storms that came through here. So Jonesy was out without power, and without power, he cannot join us through powered devices. So
yeah, it's really difficult to try to do this without power.
Yeah.
Wait, what the hell? What happened?
Oh, you didn't know?
No.
So the hurricane, what the heck was the hurricane's name? Is it Isla or something like that? Anyways, there's a hurricane that came through, and when the hurricane came through, it basically knocked down a whole bunch of trees out here in Westchester, New York, and a whole lot of us lost power. And 3 transformers blew up on my street alone. So I would get a text from Con Ed, hey, one of your transformers are back. Do you have power? And I would text back, no. And then the second one would come up, hey, you have power? No. So it just took a while. Apparently some people are getting power today and some people are getting power later in the week. So it's been a rough week for a lot of us over here.
And then we could mention what happened yesterday when we lost water after everyone started getting their power back.
Yeah, apparently there was a huge water main break in downtown here, and basically a giant sinkhole opened up on one of the major intersections in our city, and they didn't know where it was coming from, so they had to shut down the whole water for the entire city. Eventually they whittled it down and figured out exactly where it was coming from. So most of the city got water back fairly soon because they just opened the valves that were working and they closed the ones that weren't. And so hopefully if you don't have power right now, or if you don't have water right now, hopefully you'll be getting it back soon, because that really stinks.
Yeah, it sucked. No power, no water. It was like we were thrown back to the dark ages.
Holy shit.
Yeah, it was bad.
But
hopefully
people had to talk to each other.
Yeah, except if you think about it, with no water, you can't flush your toilet. So
yeah, that's the worst part. Actually, the no water part was worse, a little bit worse than the no power, because the no power, at least we were able to stay at my in-laws for temporarily to get some power, get some air conditioning because it's really hot. But the no water thing, we had power, so we stayed here. But the no water thing was really terrible.
Yeah. So why don't we talk about a little good news? You guys got any good news? Because I do. I have some good news.
All right. Well, since you got some, why don't you kick it off then?
I started watching that show Money Heist on Netflix. I hooked Jonesy on it too, but it is really good. And I didn't want to give it a chance because I'm a spoiled American and I don't want to watch shows with dubbed English over a different language. But I got over it real quick because the action just does not stop. It just starts it's like I kind of get vibes of a little Breaking Bad and a little bit of Inside Man. I get the because it's like these really intricate bank robbery heists going on. It's like a heist within a heist. It's like all these twists and turns. It's got like 2 twists in the first episode, and there's like twists every episode. There's 4 seasons. I was like, yes, win it.
Oh, I didn't realize it was dubbed.
Yeah, you can either do the subtitles or the dubbing, and the subtitles are a little off. So, yeah. Julia's commenting because I got Julia involved as well. when they were out of power, I said, "You guys got to come over and watch this show," and then they did, and I'm glad I wasn't alone.
Yeah, no, great show. We've been watching it. We're on like episode 8 or something. Episode 8 or episode 9, and at the end of every episode there's something like there's like a cliffhanger or some new revelation about the heist, and so it really kind of keeps you going and makes you want to see the next episode. It's very bingeable.
Very bingeable.
Nice.
What about you guys? You guys got any good stuff?
Dude, did you guys see those like twins who were listening to Phil Collins for the first time ever?
No, I didn't see that.
Oh yeah, I did.
It is hilarious. So like, there's like these like 2 black twins, and they are like listening to like music, from previous generations that they've never heard before. So they're listening to Phil Collins in the night, and then once the beat drops, that and then like these kids like lose it. They're like so happy, so genuine. It was just like, man, that is like the first time I heard Phil Collins.
Right. And that song especially.
Yeah. And I was like, gosh, I gotta watch Hangover now.
Are you really a middle-aged man if you don't drum that on the steering wheel every time that comes on?
I don't think I have it in a playlist right now, so I guess I'm not at that point yet.
I still listen to the easy listening satellite stuff sometimes. So,
oh boy, the fact that you said you still listen to satellite is big news.
Well, came with the car, kept it going. It's no going back to FM and whatnot. That's
okay. I thought you would be more of a streamer.
Both. Depends. If my phone's not connected or it's not connected to Bluetooth, I'll just pop on the satellite. But Jones, what about you? Any good news on your end, man?
Let's see. Good news here. I don't really have good news right here.
Like, I'm alive still. That's good news right there. Bad news is you're going back to school as a teacher.
Oh my
that
gosh.
sucks.
Well, I mean, I'd like to go back to school. No doubt. A lot of teachers want to go back to school. We just want to make sure that it's safe enough for us to do so. A lot of us teachers are still, myself excluded from that. A lot of the teachers are still, in their 50s, in their 50s and 60s, and there's a big population of that. So we're going to see what happens. I mean, I have no problem going back to school. I want to go back to school. I just want to make sure that it's the safest thing to do for me and my kids. That's all I want.
If football was still happening right now, would that be like, all right, I'm going? You wouldn't care about safety?
No. I mean, football is going to be a tall order for the fall. I mean,
no. But what if they were like, football is like, practice starts tomorrow? Like,
I'm in. I'm 100% in. Gotcha. No doubt. I'm 100% in.
Priorities.
Definitely.
But definitely. I mean, do you think that, and this is more of an overarching question, but do you think that if kids and their parents signed a waiver to say that they would be okay with playing football and they couldn't sue or anything like that, would you be in favor of that?
I think so. I mean,
outdoors.
We would be able to do it in a controlled manner. We would have to figure out how to do so, but we would just figure out how to do it. I mean, we would do it in groups of 10, groups of 10 is a tall order because you play football with 11 people. So a group of 11 hopefully would be a little bit better.
The receivers will love it without a safety.
Yeah, right.
That's not a passenger.
Yeah. So, we try to, we would do the best we can to figure it out. I mean, we figured out a way to practice football without pads all those years ago when they decided that the reason people were getting concussions was because we were hitting too much in practice. So they took pads away from us for the most part, unless it's double sessions. So, it is what it is. We'll adapt and we'll adjust. And I think schools will eventually do the same thing. They'll adapt and they'll adjust. It's a really difficult situation. I don't envy being an administrator. I think being an administrator is the hardest it's ever been because no matter what decision they make, they're going to be wrong in some people's eyes.
Huh.
There is no good decision.
Do you think that the media could potentially sway someone to think a different way?
Good segue, JC. I like that. Why isn't it playing?
It played. You got it.
All
You played it
right, we
twice.
made it happen.
It's that hot that we have to play it twice.
It's hot.
Yeah, no. What happened was my computer froze up for a second. I was trying to play a little hot topic intro. So our hot topic for this week is media bias and misinformation. This is not something you guys are unaware of. I believe everyone's talking about this website or this news site is useless or this blog or this person is biased. So everybody, the left, the right, the black, the white, it's been crazy. And it didn't just start now. It's clearly been happening over time. It's just becoming more obvious these days. We've got fake news. We've got Fox News, which JC's sitting in the studio right now, it looks like, in his background. Fox News.
Me and Hannity
So
taking it.
I think Tucker Carlson's going to swing by later.
Oh my
God! So we've got fake news.
That has a punchable face.
And why don't we start with fake news as our discussion point? Because I think that there is plenty of fake news out there, and what we come across here is people share without reading articles. So they read headlines, and I've always called, people like that headline heroes, because they think they're fighting the good fight by resharing something that they got all their information from the headline and they didn't even read any of the articles. So that is spreading fake news like crazy because people are just clicking and sharing.
Spreading faster than COVID.
Spreading faster than COVID. And then you've got your outlets like CNN, Fox News, which I think are the two sides of the same coin. They're very biased to.
I think that you bring up a good point. We should play a game. We should play left or right.
Okay.
Left or right.
All right. You want something? All right, Jonesy, NPR.
Oh, NPR. It depends. Actually, this is part of the conversation. NPR opinion or NPR news?
NPR news.
NPR news, I would say, is fairly center. Actually, I would actually say that NPR news is fairly center. I would say NPR opinion is definitely sways left.
Oof, Joe, what are you thinking?
NPR, I think, is somewhat in the center, and like Jonesy said, it depends on where you get, which section of the outlet you're getting it from.
All right.
What about you, JC? You didn't chime in on your left or right?
I think NPR is left. I think NPR is left. Next one, our favorite, my studio, Fox News.
That's right. Come on.
Yeah.
Way right.
But New York Post.
Hard right.
Yeah, super right.
New York Post.
I would say left.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say probably left. Probably more left.
All right. Wall Street Journal.
It's pretty center, actually.
Okay.
Again, Wall Street Journal has two parts to it. Wall Street Journal opinion is probably more right. Wall Street Journal actual hard news with little opinion in it is probably more center.
Okay.
That's what I'm thinking.
All
hard
right.
news, yeah.
Well, last one, because I'm sure people just don't want to hear me spouting off a bunch of media outlets, but Huffington Post.
Huffington Post is definitely left.
I'd say left, yeah, hard left too.
Ooh, I'm going center left.
Center
Okay.
left. Okay.
It's not quite okay because CNN is hard left. CNN is hard left.
CNN is definitely hard left.
You are really on that fake news.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I see a lot of you know what it is. It's the thing is like so. I'll use Fox News and CNN as perfect example here. After I cough, no COVID here. E-cigarette. So CNN and Fox News skew everything into their version of the news. So I wouldn't say it's full fake news. It's just very biased news. So you can watch, and that's why when I see a CNN article, I will not necessarily go look for the Fox News version of it. But if I come across the Fox News version of it, I like to compare. I like to compare notes and see the take on it because you'll see the CNN will be like Trump XYZ monster, and then the Fox News will be like, look what Trump did, it's amazing. And I'm like, how the hell are we so far apart on something that's supposed to be reported? Like someone said, what was it? We were missing the old school style of news where they would sit there and be like reading from the teleprompter or the paper in front of them, and they'd be like, today this happened, next this happened, next this happened. You know what I mean? Now it's a lot more
straight facts.
Yeah, the straight facts have been lost in the wash. And Nicholas said, CNN hard left. Nah, I can't tell if that's sarcasm.
No, I mean CNN definitely skews left. I don't know if they're hard left, but they're definitely on the left side of the spectrum without a doubt. Fox News is definitely right, and I think, they both feed each other as far as sharing different headlines. I mean, they can have totally different headlines for the exact same topics.
Right.
And in order to speak to their specific demographic rather than to try to give the actual news to like the mass.
Yeah.
Well, the biggest problem that I see specifically with like Fox News and the CNN, and overall regarding of the valuation of TV news is that it blurs the line of news versus opinion. So, I find that Fox News hours, if you check them out, they're pretty like neutral throughout the day compared to like later in the day where like when we have like the pundits. So when you're seeing like Hannity, Glenn Beck, Tucker Carlson, really there isn't very much actual news in a given hour. So nothing like the daily news hours on like your like local TV stations, but it's like really crucial that people understand when they're hearing or reading something to distinguish between news and news-derived facts and opinions, which don't necessarily tie back to any facts because they're opinions. So more important is to make sure that the info that you care about is stated in context so that we are delivering a message that, aligns with, the traditional way, to Joe's point, of this is what happened next. Instead of like people who are just receiving like non-contextualized snippets of a statement. And you see that a lot with networks like CNN and MSNBC, and on like, the Fox News pundit shows where they are giving their opinion on a subject matter opposed to just like giving the overall facts. So in my opinion, people are receiving way more information today than they've ever in the like previous generations, but like far less important news. So people will just like post random things and then they'll just kind of, post it out there and treat it as fact. And then someone will pick that up and then they'll say, oh yeah, this is so true. And then it's just like, oh, who is your source? And then they're like Jonesy. And I'm like, okay, you're already fake news. And this is partly just due to the denigration of journalism today, and partly because people like more emotional and simplified stories because people are afraid to use the other half of their brain sometimes.
I think you're right. I think people like to be told how to think. And that actually brings me to my next point, or our next point, because this was a team effort, but I say my because I kind of moderate the fun. People tend to only look in the direction of what they want to hear or the outlets that they want to hear from. And I'm one of those people that tries to see all the different outlets and I try to research. But if you see someone who considers himself a liberal, excuse me, Jesus, I'm drinking that seltzer. It's getting me. I'm getting the bubbles. They'll only follow CNN and The Guardian and HuffPost,
Right.
and they'll live in their echo chamber of those pundits, those ideas, those little, for example, those little clips from those op-ed shows, those pundit shows, where there's just like a 3-minute clip of the information being shared with the opinion added to it. And that's where social media comes into the spread of this misinformation or the spread of very opinionated news, because people are sharing the 3-minute clip from Tucker Carlson. And everyone's like resharing it and saying like, oh yeah, this must be right because I saw it on social media and I only watched 3 minutes of it. And that's all the information I have on the entire topic. But I know that you're wrong if you don't agree. That's so people are being fed exactly what they want to hear, not what they want to hear. Obviously, a lot of the news these days is bad. 2020 sucks. But I mean, they're living in an echo chamber of only listening to the people that are going to feed them their own opinions or the opinions that they think they want to hear. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
right.
Definitely.
Yeah, they a lot of people seek out their own biases, and way back when, actually our first show, we talked about our biases and what kind of biases that we have. I got a frog in my throat now. What kind of biases we have towards race and sex and religion and all these different things, and all these different subjects and social issues. What kind of biases do we have? So we feed our own biases by only looking at certain things. In order to be a well-rounded person, a well-educated person, a person who understands the world as a whole, you have to understand that you have to be able to look at what the opposition is saying. So if you feel like it's like an opposite of what you're saying, then look at it and you should be able to see, what the opposite is saying. You're probably going to disagree with it. You may agree with some things that they say, but you may disagree with most of it. But in order to understand the totality of how America thinks and what everyone is thinking is what the goal is, essentially. Like, a big part of why it was a surprise that Trump won the election was because a lot of people who were Democrats were only looking and researching and seeing Democratic issues, and they were basically feeding their own biases and not understanding that there is a large amount of people in different parts of the country that disagree with you and that want different things than you. And if we don't understand what those things are, then we can't make a massive change for our country.
Right. The guy in New York City or the guy in LA has no idea what it's like to live in Louisiana. So, I mean, people think inside that. I was saying this earlier when we were talking before the show. People live in their little bubble where they can't fathom the idea of people thinking differently than them. So it's funny watching people around here in the Westchester and in Long Island and the New York City area. Oh, how can anybody think this way? Like, well, you live in this area and you live with like-minded people that tend to have the same point of view. If you don't live in a metropolitan suburb or a metropolitan city, you might not think you want things to be a certain way. So people can't think outside of their own bias. They're sitting there going, well, this is ridiculous. They need to think like this. No, they don't have to. That's why the world's made up with all different opinions.
And a lot of times they don't. A lot of times they don't think that way. And I'm not, and it's not saying that it's wrong, and it's not saying that they're incorrect. It's just that it's a lot different. And so when you're trying to convince someone that with facts, that your opinion is correct, remember that it's just an opinion, and you have to understand that they have their own biases and how they grew up, and the people that they grew up with and people they grew up around have very similar biases, the same way that you do with the people that you grew up with. and the
Correct.
people that you interact with, who your family members is, who your culture is that you grew up. Because in the South, there's a whole different culture down there that is hard to understand unless you actually take a look at it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, I had so much I wanted to say because you said that someone from Louisiana, someone who lives in New Orleans, someone who lives in Los Angeles wouldn't know what someone in Louisiana would live like. And I was just like, damn, I have a great joke. Anthony Davis would know that because he got traded from Louisiana to LA. It was perfect, but you kept talking and you were making really good points. So I didn't want to interrupt Joe. So, but my other point was,
you still got
oh my, yeah,
y'all got the joke in. I muted myself.
Y'all need to stop drinking that fizzy water.
I know, it's making me cough.
None of that sparkling. You need to go back to tap water.
COVID with lime.
Unless you're good with lime.
Yeah, shout out to Vitamin Water Zero.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, triple X.
Polar with lime.
But I mean, I think you both have really like hit on the points. It's just at the end of the day, right? When we're talking about media bias, we need to step back and realize that all of these media outlets are trying to make money via an audience base. There is little hard news that is informative from any outlets. The media is selling a product, often shows personalities and not news. So this is, basic across all political spectrums of the media to offer what their base is looking for. And the media uses basic mechanisms to hook us and their respective audiences so that, they can like draw us in. So whether it's news media, social media, search engines, these all become so biased and personalized that we're often stuck inside of these like filtered bubbles. So like to Joni's point, we're people who live in the North have no, real understanding of how someone in Kentucky is really feeling. And so when they bring up topics that such as like coal mining, be like, we have no clue what the hell coal miners would want from us living on the coast, right? And so we're only exposed to information and ideals that we already agree with. And oftentimes we only see information that confirms our existing beliefs. So we may end up hating the other side, believing that they're wrong or evil. But I think everyone should, be able to have different opinions. You can have different opinions and be friends. It feels good to hear from people who think just like us. And those media outlets, they try to incentivize us with bipartisanship, but it helps them earn ad revenue, especially if they're using sensational, like yellow journalism and clickbait, because that's what's going to draw people in, because you're going to look for a flashy headline that says like Trump eats alligator, opposed to like Trump, dissecting an alligator. I don't know what it may be, but you get the point.
I heard he put if he's eating. I heard he puts ketchup on his steak. So like right there, -1 points. So
yeah,
monster, you monster. We had a couple people chime in. We had Tatiana say, "Our differences make us better if we communicate effectively." Totally agree. Laren said they are all owned by conglomerates, the media, which is why I stopped watching and started reading everything, which is not a bad approach. But like we were saying earlier, I don't know if you guys were tuned in yet. The visual media, the visual channels, they definitely have an agenda, but a lot of the news does spew off from their bits or their hour of television. So I was saying before that, you'll see like a 3-minute clip of Tucker Carlson pop up in your newsfeed, and then people will reshare that. So they're still getting their news from these outlets. And you can read a lot of better options. You can also bounce to different outlets when you're reading news. So I prefer to read as well when it comes to news.
I mean, when's the last time someone's been like, I don't agree typically with this individual, but they have a point? Like, when's the last time someone did that to be like, I can admit when you are wrong or when I am wrong and you are right? Like, I think it's just a big pill for people to swallow their pride and admit someone else is right or their opinion is more valid.
I think a lot of people they just make the choice that if I admit that one little thing that they said is correct, then that means I have to validate or think that all of everything that they said is correct, which is just not true. But a lot of people, they're so emotionally charged from fighting about politics and religion and sports and all these different things that it's hard for people to admit when, I don't agree with everything you said, but that little piece, that was right on the money. And it really takes a lot of practice, but it also takes a lot of your ego has to be shrunken a little bit in order for you to be able to do that, in order to say that. But I also wanted to just piggyback off of what JC said about making money. A lot of the news outlets almost died with the rise of the internet. And because we were getting all of our news for free now, instead of having subscriptions to a newspaper and subscribing to, all these different news outlets, not only local news outlets, but the all the news outlets that of real journalism, of these big national news outlets, they're getting all their information for free now, unfortunately. So it's hard to tell an industry not to make money. And so since the internet was basically saying, okay, we're going to give you all the news for free now, all these journalists and all these different news outlets really tried to find a way to save themselves and find a way to make as much money as they could. And they found out that if you pander to people's biases and get them emotionally charged about certain issues, that they'll consume your media more. Okay, that's where Fox News and CNN and all these different news outlets became very popular and became very biased. Now, what also happened is it's really easy to make a website nowadays, and it was really easy to make a website also in the .com days.
Angel Fire, what up?
So since it was so easy to make one of those simple websites, it's really easy to call yourself a news outlet when you're not really a news outlet. And that's what kind of gets me also. Like a lot of these people who just pop up out of nowhere, including us somewhat, and
guys with
an outlet. They try to create an outlet for themselves to try to make as much money as they can. They don't care. They don't give a damn about giving the correct information. They just want as many people watching them as possible.
Yeah, right. No, I completely agree with you. Like, the way that these media outlets have portrayed the news is really interesting because, their inherent biases have contributed to Americans becoming more politically polarized. So we can't identify, understand, and appreciate diverse perspectives because we're more likely to be manipulated into thinking or vote in a certain way. We may even begin to see the other side as evil. Hidden bias limits our ability to understand others, problem solve, compromise, and overall the nation suffers because we don't have a balanced diet of news that's transparent. So oftentimes we can't arm ourselves with a broader view and find the truths of ourselves because, to Joe's point, a lot of us are just lazy and just read headlines.
Yeah. Laren popped up and said, Facebook destroyed real conversational discourse and discussion. And I've said this, and I agree with her. I've said this. People become keyboard warriors, and they have no problem saying something to somebody that they wouldn't say in a crowded bar because they would get punched in the face. So they know they're protected through their keyboard or their screen, and they'll say horrible, horrible things. Like I've had people say to me, "Oh, that's what you think? I feel sorry for your kids. You're a horrible parent." Because I said Trump did something right once. It's crazy that people go down these avenues of hate and discourse that are just it's just not how people were designed to interact and share ideas. So yeah, I love Facebook, and I think there's a lot of positives from it. But she's right that the political disagreements, or any disagreements really, tend to become more heated because people just hide behind their screen and their keyboard and say things that they wouldn't normally say, or have the balls to really attack someone personally. Because if you attack someone personally from across the country that you don't know, they're not going to come. I mean, they might come find you. That'd be unfortunate, but
they pull Stewie. They pull a Stewie. You ever see that Family Guy episode? They pull a Stewie where he just hops on a plane to punch somebody in the face.
Hey, they don't just have to have balls. They can also have a vulva.
Yeah. So, I do want to move on to misinformation real quick, because we touched on the bias side of things. And I have a perfect example of the media misinformation that I just thought of that I didn't put in the notes. So I'm blindsiding you guys with it, but sometimes that'll give us good content.
Strong side.
You guys remember Nicholas Sandmann, the Kentucky student that was standing on the Capitol, the stairs to the Capitol, and he just started winning all these defamation lawsuits against all the news outlets because they told the story wrong? Do you guys know what I'm talking about?
Wait, what was his name again?
Nicholas Sandmann, the kid that was sitting on the kid.
Oh,
who
yes,
looked like,
the kid. Yes.
Because
yes.
The news outlets, multiple news outlets, wanted to be first. And I think this, and I'll get into the details of that story if you guys don't know it. I'm sure you do, but we'll touch upon the points that we want to get to. In the speed of this, in the current technological age, the speed of information is how these, we were talking about, making money. Being first is how they make money. Being the first one with the story is how it's, what would they call it? A scoop, or whatever you want to call it, is the first one to the story. So I think it was who got sued by them? The Washington Post,
New York Post. It was like all the big
CNN. Ones. Yeah, they painted a picture that this kid had said something terrible, and that's why the Native American guy was drumming in his face, and his smirk was whatever the story was. It was actually misreported. And when the videos came out about what went down, there was some other people starting beef with these kids. These kids weren't actually engaging. So they were the ones that were essentially attacked verbally. But the news outlets wanted to report that because he had a Make America Great Again hat on, that he was the bad guy. Also, you're doxing a teenager. And if you're going after a kid, you're putting his name out there, you're putting his school out there. I mean, that is just next level messed up, whether you agree with his political opinions or not. It's a kid in high school trying to learn about his government history, and CNN and Washington Post, or whoever these outlets were, wanted to get the story out fast because it was hot. It was a hot item. It was anti-Trump or pro-Trump, whatever it was. And so they blasted out all this information about this kid and how he started all this trouble and how his school and the kids started trouble. But when the videos came out, they were like, wow, oops. And that kid had a good lawyer, and now he's set forever because I believe he's settling for triple million digits, hundreds of millions of dollars across multiple lawsuits. So if anybody wants to come yell at me on a staircase, be my guest.
Yeah, really.
Totally down. I'll take the hit.
Wait, this has nothing to do with media bias, but if you won $100 million, right, from a lawsuit, like, are you proud of that money?
I mean, he didn't ask for any of it. It just happened to him.
Like when someone asks you, how'd you make your money? It'd be like, oh, I sued someone for it.
Yeah, I would be okay with saying that.
I'd be like, hold on, I can't hear you. I'm on the other side of the yacht.
Can you speak a little louder?
I'm on the other yacht. Huge. I'm on the other yacht. You got to come over to this yacht. I can't hear you.
Take the boat to the other yacht, please.
Take the jet skis to the speedboat. Take the speedboat to the other yacht. I'll be over here.
Oh boy.
Yeah, I wouldn't be necessarily proud of it, but I mean, you're not going to turn it down. Are you going to be like, no, it's okay, I don't need the money? Like, you're going to cash that check.
I mean, like people like Mackenzie Bezos, who got like billions of dollars and like is donating $100 million. It's just like, oh, so how'd you get rich? Well, my husband was banging a secretary, and I happened to be in the garage when he created Amazon, and I got $1 billion out of it.
Oh, and Dre's wife, Dr. Dre's wife, too.
Yeah.
Ex-wife?
Ex-wife, yeah.
Yeah, we digress. Sorry.
Yeah.
No, this is.
Anyways, I digress.
Oh yeah, we did take a turn. So back to media misinformation. So I think the culprit is the trying to make the money and trying to be the first to the story. And these outlets are learning a lot from this one specific story about what happens when you put out misinformation. And this is actually a cornerstone going forward of it sets a precedent as to what can happen. I think it makes these outlets take a step back now from trying to be the first to throw someone under the bus, the first to the story. They kind of got to pump the brakes a little bit and double check their facts before they put it in print or start talking about it on their news stations.
I really don't think it's going to do much. I think they're still going to try to be first because they make more money being first than they do in lawsuits later.
Yeah.
Is it kind of like Deutsche Bank getting sued for the Epstein or getting for money laundering?
Yeah, I mean, they get caught money laundering every 5 to 6 years, and they're just like, okay, we got caught again.
Here's 150 million. Go away.
Speaking of Epstein, it's the 1 year anniversary of him not killing himself.
Is that what happened? Is that today?
No, it was yesterday, but
still notable.
Yeah,
still very notable
because he didn't kill himself.
Because part two's coming soon. Ghislaine Maxwell.
Oh boy. So wait, no, but I think you have a point with like the whole misinformation though, is the fact that a lot of times you do have to report in the moment because just thinking of people who like kill people and like or do like really bad things, and then we find out like that they were actually like the victim, like they were a child that was kidnapped and killed their captor. And so like it's like, okay, yes, this person murdered someone, but we also didn't know that they were being like captured against their will. I mean, that's like an extreme example, but I still think that news outlets are going to report right away because every one of us has the ability to post in near seconds, like when something happens, and we don't fact check that all, and then we'll just get picked up from someone else. And so then it's just like, well, the news reported my tweet out, and like they're probably not like, oh, we can't be sued because we just retweeted, JC's tweet.
Mm-hmm. I think also, have you guys noticed? And this is Jonesy had in the notes that we were going to touch upon investigative journalism. I remember investigative journalism being like the exciting part of the news back before the internet was as big as it is. And people were excited to see the 60 Minutes Undercover or the 2020 scoop that, News at 11, right. This investigative journalism. Someone went undercover to unearth these travesties. And I've noticed that that's kind of taken a dip. And I don't think it's taken a dip because people aren't doing it. I think it's taken a dip because these outlets are afraid of sharing misinformation in those stories, or they just keep labeling everything as a conspiracy theory. If someone does investigative journalism, they're like, nah, that's not real. Not enough proof. That can't be real. And I've seen that a lot with these human trafficking issues is people are dismissing it and saying, it can't be real. That's too crazy. But yet there have been investigative journalists that have gone out and have looked into it and have found proof. Amy Robach said in that clip that you guys have maybe not seen. She was talking in 2016 on a hot mic about how she had everything on the Epstein case and she could have put away the Clintons and Trump and everybody, and they made her throw it out. And that goes back to Laren's point about the conglomerates owning the media, because probably those rich billionaires were part of the problem there. So they made them bury the story and destroy the evidence. I had a point to this, and my point is that that's another thing that's happening with the misinformation, or they're burying some real information because it could hurt them, their news outlets, their owners of these conglomerates. So there's a lot of corruption that's just bleeding into all of these media outlets, I think. Yeah,
I read a good book by Ronan Farrow, who is Mia Farrow's son.
Mm-hmm.
It's called Catch, Kill, Release. And it's basically about like his hard-hitting like journalism looking into like Harvey Weinstein and like like people involved in like the Me Too movement, and how a bunch of like news networks were just like, oh, we can't run this story, and like, you know, these really rich people, like, they have money for a reason. They use that money to get out of trouble, and so they're able to, you know, squash a story or kill it. And his whole thing was that he wanted to unveil the truth and get it out there so everyone can like see like the true story. But to your point also about how people, there's not as much like investigated like journalism, I think there is, that it's still going on, but there's like no longer like that one dude or that one lady who's going to be like, oh, when this person is going to speak, I am going to be like totally focused. Like Barbara Walters is coming on and Chris Hansen's coming on. Like, who the hell did they just catch? Like, those were like individuals that we like cared about. Nowadays, with like Twitter and Instagram and Facebook and social media and everything, there's so many personalities that there's not one like true voice outside of Adam Schefter, who breaks news on the daily, to give us a voice that we can all trust. And that we know that it's going to be like unbiased and it's going to be hard hitting facts.
Yeah. Jonesy?
Yeah, I mean, I just want to, you know, just make a little segue here. You know, if you're looking for stuff that is unbiased, or maybe you want to look at both sides of an issue. If you want to look at, you know, the flips, if you want to look at both sides of the issue, if you want to look at the left, the right, and what the center is saying about it, there's a couple great websites that you can go to take a look at this. My favorite at this point is flipside.io. Flipside.io is a fantastic website. They take an issue per day. It's totally free. And basically what they do is they curate all of the news from the left and all the news from the right, and then they put it together in a well-written, this is what the left is saying, this is what the right's saying. And they even have a section of, every once in a while, they have a libertarian section. So Joe will like that.
Yes, I will.
And so they love to curate this content, and then you can make your own decision from it. And that's basically what we're trying to, that's basically the main point of what we're trying to say is, you know, don't just look at your side of the aisle. Make sure that you're looking at the other side of the aisle, and then make a decision from there, because that's how you create informed decisions, whether you're going to vote or whether you're going to have a conversation or whether you're trying to change the world. You want to know what all sides are saying. And speaking of, there's the next website I wanted to bring up was allsides.com. Allsides.com is a website that it's very similar to Flipside. It's just a little bit less content driven, but you can put in a certain website or a certain either blog or news outlet, and it'll tell you what their biases are. Are they left? Are they right? Are they center? And of course, if you're looking for stuff that's more center, if you're just looking for the news itself, the ones that we recommend, Associated Press is pretty unbiased. They can swing a little bit left at times. Reuters is another one that's it's more unbiased, but they can also swing to the right at times.
I see Reuters. I like Reuters a lot. I usually tend to check Reuters for a headline. If I see a headline that seems ridiculous to me, I will see if Reuters has something about that topic or that news story.
Yeah, and Newsy, NPR News, okay, is what we talked about earlier in the show. Make sure you're looking at the news outlets and not the opinion outlets, because there's a lot of these websites, they try to trick you. They put their website on something that's opinion and you think it's news. What they're trying to do is they're trying to get headlines, they're trying to get eyeballs on their content so that they can sell ads and all that jazz. And PBS News is another really, really good one. But again, PBS Opinion, the PBS shows swing more to the left, but PBS News itself is more center. So make sure you're looking at the right part of the website that you go to all the time.
Unless you're looking for opinions, which I think it's good to look at the opinions occasionally. It's good to get the opinions. It's good to get the ideas. Well, like I always say, it's good to listen to the opinions from both sides. I mean, there's videos that I've started watching, and I'm listening to the opinion going, come on, guy. But I'll try to suffer through it, even though if right off the bat I'm not feeling it. I'll try to say, well, let me see where this is going. Let me see if this has an end game. Let me see if this starts off bad and ends well. I know that a lot of people these days are like, well, I'm out of here. Click. I'm unfollow. I'm not doing this anymore. I mean, I see a lot of people unfollowing each other, a lot of people unfollowing news outlets because of one thing they didn't agree with. And that's another thing that's skewing people. And we were discussing before about how people living in their own little bubble of what they want to hear. If you're just going to unfollow everybody and everything you don't agree with, I mean, where are you going to be? You're not going to be educated. In my opinion, you're not going to be educated properly and forming the proper opinion. You're going to be getting spoon-fed your opinion. So
right, and you're only gonna understand your own biases over and over and over again. It's like looking into a mirror. It's going to be a cycle over and over and over again, and then ta-da! You're super surprised that Donald Trump gets elected because you've only looked at your own opinion and your own biases throughout. That's why Flipside is great. Flipside, I cannot stress it enough. Flipside.io. Definitely subscribe to it. It's free. They take most of the topics and they split it up left and right, and you can read both sides, what both sides of the aisle is saying, what both of their news are saying, and also what both of their opinions are, so that you're a well-informed person, and then you can create your own opinion based off of that. Yeah.
So it looks like we're hitting the 55-minute mark, and we've been trying really hard to keep it under an hour for Instagram. So I think we'll start closing up. I think we got all our points on the table this week. We actually have one last comment I'll throw on there. Alan says, it seems a bit simplistic to assume that people are unfollowing because they want to create a bubble of content they prefer, don't you think? I don't think they want to create a bubble of content they prefer. I think that they unintentionally create a bubble of content that they prefer. It's not something that they're intentionally doing. It's something that they're doing unintentionally. That's what I think.
It becomes something that you're really comfortable with, because if you're always hearing your own biases, then it becomes a circle of comfort. And we're recommending, we want people to get out of their own comfort zone and take a look at what the other sides are saying, even if it's uncomfortable for you and can create those negative emotions for you. You still have to make sure that you're a well-informed person by looking at all sides of an issue.
Yeah, we're talking to Philadelphia fans.
So we're going to close up here for you guys. A couple more announcements for you. Real quick, it went over Jonesy's face and everybody's face here. We have a Facebook group now, and we couldn't get the software to work the right way. Facebook was kind of crashing on us tonight. But the group, the link is available on our page. The group is more interactive. You guys can post stuff. We can let you guys post some news, whatever else, memes. We've been doing a lot of memes out there because we want to have some fun with our pages and stuff. We think that memes are fun for everybody. So we have the Facebook group up, and that is going to get you guys it happens more in the newsfeed. The live streams pop in your newsfeed more. Our memes will come into your newsfeed more. Our news articles, which we got to start posting a little more news articles. We promise we will, because we've been slacking there. We've been so gung-ho about the memes because 2020 has given us some solid freaking memes, man. It's really hard to pass up on posting some of them. But we implore you to keep it PG-13 because Jonesy likes his job.
Yes.
So
don't get this teacher canceled, please.
Don't get Jonesy canceled. We want to keep it PG-13. And also we can have a broader audience, listener base, if there are younger viewers, and we can keep it safe for the younger viewers. We want the younger viewers to hear what we have to say about listening to each other and whatnot, and having disagreements and discussions, because this is what it's all about, man. The future are these kids and these teenagers, and if they're living in this social media bubble, then false information and fake news and highly opinionated topics or news articles, the future is going to be even more scary than it is now. So let me close out with Twitter at the TMI Podcast, Linktree, linktr.ee/the TMI Podcast has all of our links, Facebook.com/the TMI Podcast, Instagram at @total_male_introspective. We are here every Tuesday night live at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and 6 p.m. Pacific. We also are on iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and all the other major podcast providers. So if you guys missed the show over here live, where you guys can comment and join the discussion, #join the discussion, which we have obviously shown everybody that we let you guys join in and join the party. But yeah, subscribe to the oops. I guess we'll just skip it this week. We're on our way out. I did make a mistake. You know what, JC? I'll own the mistake. See, that's what we do. We got to own it. We don't let the ego have it. I started doing the closing before JC got to say his final word. So
you were on a roll. We didn't want to interrupt you.
I was doing so well. It was such a good closing. Rewind. Ready? Sorry. JC, final word. Have at it.
Oh boy, thank you. Okay, so in the past, this is my final word. This is my final rebuttal. You can hate me, love me. It's not going to hurt my feelings. In the past, national evening news programs, local evening news programs, and front pages of print newspapers were dominated by fact reporting stories. However, now many sources people consider to be news sources are actually dominated by analysts and opinion pieces. And I think the extremes are very toxic and damaging the country. These extreme sources play on people's worst instincts like fear and tribalism and take advantage of people's confirmation biases. So to wrap this up, if you have just a couple of sources that you think are in the middle, but none exist to either the right or left of them, or up or down from them, you may be on the wrong track. Every source is biased. Your responsibility is to read or listen to different sources, discover the point of view, decide how it compares to yours, and decide what you can learn from it. Reading and listening to different sources helps you learn more of what is the truth. One source will never tell the truth. It will tell their truth. You have to decide where your truth lies. And that is my final word.
Sorry, I cut you off. I got excited to just do my closing.
Well done.
It was very well done, JC. I appreciate it. All right. I'll go back to the closing now. I covered most of the bases there.
Oh, that hour.
What? And we hit the hour. Instagram already kicked us off. I was trying to avoid it, but we got to get better at the time management. So a couple last things. Donate to us at patreon.com/the TMI Podcast, patreon.com. It's ticking across the bottom there. That's where you guys can support us and throw us a couple bucks, $5, $10, $20 a month to keep the show going strong. We are on every Tuesday at 9. I said that. And 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Linktree. And I think that'll be it for this evening. I thank you guys for joining us. I'm Joe.
I'm JC.
Jonesy, have a good night.